Good morning and welcome to Member Focus Monday. I'm Christina Schaefer, Director of Social Media for HAR, and I'm very pleased this morning to be joined by Dr. Steve Sherman. He is a research scientist at the Kinder Institute for Urban Research at Rice University, and he has some wonderful findings that I think we all need to know about to share with us this morning. Welcome to the program, Steve.
Thanks, Christina, and thank you for having me this morning.
Absolutely. We're very excited to hear from you. We are longtime partners with the Kinder Institute, and we've definitely had you guys come speak for us before. Of course, we've had Dr. Kleinberg in the past. We had Ruth Lopez more recently. So it's been a wonderful partnership. And of course, we're always following your findings. Specifically today, we're going to be talking about the state of Houston and Harris County housing report, which we can share links to a little bit later. Dr. Sherman also has some slides for us as well that we'll share towards the end of today's program. So we've got a lot to share with our members. Before we get into all that, though, Steve, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what you do at Kinder.
So I am as of now, the de facto senior housing researcher. Not too much longer because we're bringing on some people. I'm very excited about that. I've been at the Kinder Institute for the past 4 years and have had my hands on every single housing related research project in that period of time to various extents. And I've been the lead on the past two states of housing. I also want to say thank you. Thank you for having me this morning, for allowing, giving myself and the Kinder Institute this forum to share our research. And also thank you for the data. So this project literally could not exist in its current form without the very generous data sharing agreements that we have with HHR, who share their MLS data with us. So it's a lot more accurate and better and much more finely grained detail than what we're able to get from the census and the American Community Survey. So this project literally could not exist without the partnership that Kinder has with HAR. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you for mentioning that. And we do cover a wide variety of different metrics, as from everything from affordability, which we'll talk about in depth with you today, as well as just sales and how things are going. So, of course, we can share a link to that in the comments for anybody who's looking for that information from HAR. Let's talk a little bit about the work that you guys do over at Kinder. What is the goal of that work and in producing the state of housing in Harris County and Houston?
So the Kinder Institute is a research practice partnership organization. So we do a lot of research with identified community partners. A lot of our housing research is actually done with HHA and focuses more on affordable renting, not necessarily home purchasing. But one of the flagship reports at the Kinder Institute, it's really developed to sort of being our number two report after the Houston Area Community Survey, is the yearly State of Housing in Harris County and Houston report, which we've generously funded by Wells Fargo. And that really seeks to identify, to sort of paint a portrait of the housing system in the region. The first 2 years' reports were pretty broad. Last year's was renting. This year, we thought a natural complement would be to focus on home ownership. And that was really what we came to. And I think it's of particular interest to your audience at HAR.
Absolutely. They're very interested in the work you're doing and the information in this report. So what trends does this report analyze, and also how are those findings captured?
So there's really three different subsections of the report. And I could talk at this at great length, but I'll keep it high level and maybe allow you to ask more detailed questions. One is this general trends, like who are homeowners? How has that changed within Harris County and Houston? And this is also, I want to emphasize, the State of Housing report is called the State of Housing in Harris County and Houston. But increasingly, we realize that that's kind of limiting. The metro area is 9 counties, and especially when you talk about home ownership, and I can go into more detail later, it's really happening more so in suburban counties. The share of owner-occupied households in Harris County is shrinking. Meanwhile, in Montgomery County and Fort Bend County, which were the two counties we focused on this year because they're the two largest, it's about 3/4 of households are owner-occupied, as opposed to about 55% in Harris County.
Wow.
So trends in home ownership, just who are homeowners and where are they? Secondly, home ownership affordability. And thirdly, indicators of gentrification within Harris County. That's the
Okay.
broad focus of this year's report.
Great, thank you. So, were there any results that you yourself or maybe the group found particularly surprising in this year's report?
So that's a really good question, because I think what you find surprise as somebody who like looks at these sort of data every day, it's kind of hard to surprise me a little bit. I would say personally, there are two aspects. There's one central aspect that I found kind of most surprising and kind of most interesting, and that Dr. Kleinberg and Houston really touts its diversity, ethnic and racial diversity. But we're finding with home ownership, it's not the city of Houston, but it's the suburbs that are increasingly reflecting the region's diversity when you look at home ownership. I found that to be particularly interesting. For example, there are within the city of Houston, looking at the number of black homeowners or black homeowner occupied households, there were two neighborhoods that actually lost more than 1,000 black owner occupied households between 2010 and 2022. But if you look at Harris County beyond Beltway 8, there were, I believe, 8 neighborhoods that gained more than 1,000 black owner occupied households. Similarly, in those suburban counties, you're finding an increasing number of Asian, Hispanic, and black owner occupied households. I would say that was what I found kind of most interesting, and there's something I think I'd like to highlight.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, I know you were keeping it high level for us, but with regard to homeownership affordability and gentrification, can you kind of give us an idea of the findings that you found in each of those categories?
Yeah, so homeownership affordability. So this is one thing to note. As of 2023, in both Harris County and Houston, the median home price is above $300,000. And it's increased, in Houston, it's increased 25%. In Harris County, it's increased 43% in only 5 years, which is pretty astounding. So that raises the question. It's like, well, homes are this expensive. Can people here afford them? And the answer that we kind of found is well, not kind of, the answer we found is no, when you look at sort of median income households. And, based in like for 2018, for instance, a median income household
Alex.
could afford a home in Harris County that was $186,000. And assuming they shouldn't be spending more than 30% of their income on housing. But in 2018, a median price home was $220,000. So there's about $40,000 difference between what someone could afford, what a median household can afford, and what's actually out there. That's not too huge of a difference, though. But by 2023, that gap really exploded. So home prices went up a lot, but purchasing power did not. Purchasing power only, but
Looks
home
like we had
prices
a.
increased 43%.
Sorry, Steve, just for a second. You mentioned purchasing power, and then we had a little break. It looks like it froze for just a second. Could you repeat that answer for us? There was a part about
Yeah,
purchasing power.
sorry about.
Yes.
I'm at the Rice. I'm at the Rice University internet. I would assume it'd be better. My apologies.
It's okay.
So purchasing power in those 5 years only went up 1% for a median income household, but price increased 43%. So you see here, it goes from 186. Purchasing power goes from 186,000 to 189,000, but home price went from 220,000 to 315,000. So there's this huge increase in the gap between what's actually out there for people to buy and what households can afford. And I want to emphasize that when making these calculations about what households can afford, we're taking into account interest rates, we're taking into account home insurance, which is something that is increasingly on people's minds, and also mortgage insurance, assuming these are FHA loans.
And that is an excellent point. And I'm glad you brought that up. We had a comment that came in from Diane. It's more difficult when combined with the increased interest rate. So you are taking those different things into account.
Correct. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you for that. And I do see a couple other questions coming in. A lot of good mornings. So good morning, everyone. We're happy you're here. If you have any questions, please type them in and we'll get to as many as we can. I wanted to continue on this line of conversation for just a second, though. You talked about affordability. What about the gentrification aspect?
Sure. So we decided to do kind of this novel analysis this year, and we harvested HCAD data, Harris County Assessor District data, on or Harris Central Assessor District. They changed their name this year or a few years ago. We looked at just to see like where homes, single family homes, had changed ownership in this period from 2017 to 2022. It's kind of pre and post COVID. So I get a sense of like where are sold homes appreciating a lot. So like where are people just buying homes and then they're seeing the value skyrocket. And we wanted to find places that had both like the median home value increase, and also we looked at some common indicators of gentrification, drawing from the research lit. So neighborhoods where the median household income increased, the share of residents with a bachelor degree or more increased, and also the proportion of non-white residents decreased, so increase in the share of residents that are white. And we identified that about, when you look at places that have those indicators, it's about 1 in 10 neighborhoods in Harris County. And there's kind of an interesting map to it. So you see that like there's a lot of places that are beyond the 610 loop. You know, we think about gentrification as like a central city thing, but it seems to be happening, you know, kind of outside 610 in some suburban areas as well. You know, those are places that you can find things that resemble gentrification, like historic home teardowns to build newer, larger, and more expensive homes. And there's a lot more detail about this within the report.
Absolutely. Thank you. So you mentioned the comparison to other local counties. Of course, our members serve, you mentioned the 9 counties in our MSA, our members serve all of them. You mentioned a little bit of this, if we could get into a little more detail, how does Harris County compare to other local counties? And specifically, I know you guys said you followed Fort Bend and Montgomery County this year. So any other local county findings and how Harris compares?
Yeah, let me pull up some reports. So I already talked about the fact that like Fort Bend and Montgomery, those are the places where home ownership is growing. So like from 2010 to 2022, thank you for sharing this slide. You know, you see this huge, I want to highlight that number change column. You know, Fort Bend and Montgomery put together have only 1/3 of the population of Harris County. And yet in that 12-year period, they added as many owner-occupied households as Harris County, despite only having 1/3 of the people. And note, this doesn't take into account Brazoria County, which is growing very quickly. Recently has passed Galveston County to be the 4th largest county in the metro, let alone Liberty, Waller, and a lot of other places where you're seeing a lot of construction. You know, it's not necessarily in these places, too, that homes are more affordable. And I can pull up these numbers right quick. But in these places, you see that, you know, homes in Fort Bend County, the median price, I believe, let me just look this up quickly, is higher than, and I want to verify this quickly, than Harris County.
And as you do that, we did have a quick question of somebody asking where can they get access to the full report. We did share that link in the comments for you. We'll share it again towards the end. And also Steve's slides that he's generously provided for us today. We will share a link to all of those slides at the end as well. So for anybody looking for that information, we will share all that information in the comments.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And if you do have any questions for Steve, please type those into the comments again. I do see a couple questions coming in. One specifically about where people are moving. We'll get to that in just a little bit. And of course, any other questions that you may have, we'll take a look at those.
So, one of the interesting things actually about new home construction, this isn't necessary. We didn't look at inter-regional migration patterns, so I think
Mm-hmm.
that's something we're looking to potentially explore as an option for the prior report, for next year's report, rather. But when you look at like new home construction, there are certain neighborhoods about in 2023, one neighborhood, Cypress South in northwestern part of the county, accounted for, I believe, about 13% of all new home sales in Harris County in just one neighborhood. So you're seeing that like places, where people are, they're getting further and further out, especially with new construction.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure our members can attest to that with the the trends they're seeing with their clients and
Yeah.
customers. Very good.
Also, I think that there's one thing I kind of like to highlight about like where is affordable housing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because as I mentioned, it's not necessarily given that Fort Bend and Montgomery are going to be places where you can find excellent, good condition $180,000 homes. And one thing I like to highlight is that there are some neighborhoods in Harris County in which we found that um, median price homes are affordable. But
Mm-hmm.
of the 143 neighborhoods mapped out by the Kinder Institute, there are only 7 which are affordable.
Mm-hmm.
And those 7 places we found have, I believe I shared that. There's a slide I have where I share that. And this is actually, and then a majority of neighborhoods, are not affordable even to a household earning $100,000,
Mm-hmm.
which is well above the countywide median income. And these 7 neighborhoods are all on the east side. They don't, or east of downtown,
Mm-hmm.
and they all don't really have a lot of owner occupied building stock.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Not as many single family homes as places like Cypress or Klein. And I guess the question that I have for like the realtors is, and I can name them: Cashmere Gardens, Pleasantville, South Park, Gulfgate, Riverview, Galena Park, East X Jensen area, and Denver Harbor, Port of Houston area.
Mm-hmm.
Within the report, there's a lot more details about like demographics of those neighborhoods and how they compare to affordable neighborhoods. But I guess the question that I have for the realtors is like, working in those areas, like how do you channel clients to those areas? Like, this is
Mm-hmm.
where affordable housing to purchase exists in Harris County.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, is there perhaps an opportunity to develop more and invest more in those areas, build more housing? Um, what are you seeing on the ground? Because obviously, I'm looking at everything from the high level.
Yeah. That's a great question, and if any of our members want to chime in with their thoughts or their experiences, please type those in, and we'll take a look at those. I want to thank you for sharing those 7 areas. We did have somebody asking that question. I want to go back. You mentioned earlier about ethnic groups and how it seems like they're moving out of Harris County into other neighborhoods. We did have a question that came in that I want to go back to find. Give me just one second. I'm sorry about that. Felita actually was asking, she'd like to know where they are moving to, but she was asking specifically about the Black homeowners that you said are moving. If you know where these different ethnic groups are moving out of Harris County to.
Yeah, so it's 2 neighborhoods that lost. I want to kind of amend the statement. There were 2 neighborhoods that lost more than 1,000 Black homeowners, and there were 10 neighborhoods that gained more than 1,000 Black homeowners. It's that specific 1,000 cutoff that I need to
Mm-hmm.
elaborate on. And let me pull that up because I can actually look this up pretty quickly. Um, and it is. Hold on. I know a lot of them are northeast Harris County,
Mm-hmm.
Atascocita, Humble area, but let me pull up. Aha, here we go. Atascocita, Cypress South. These are the places which have gained the most Black homeowners. So
Mm-hmm.
Atascocita is the first, 2,500, roughly 2,500 Black owner occupied households.
Mm-hmm.
These are households, not people. A growth of that number since 2010. So Atascocita, Cypress South, Katy North, Minnetex, Spring, Lake Houston, Bear Creek, Cypress North, Klein East, and Humble South. So a mixture of Northeast and Northwest predominantly, but not entirely.
Very good. Thank you for that data.
And
Just a couple comments that came in. There's concerns. Nobody's really suggested how they're getting people to maybe move to those areas, but of course, there's questions around what a typical homeowner would ask. There's a couple people mentioned schools and the quality of schools, crime, amenities, things like that. Those are obviously concerns for homeowners. And as you were discussing, potential investment for building, maybe there's potential for growth and investment in those areas as well. I did want to ask, and I don't know if this report covered it, so I'm going out on a limb here, but our members, of course, their goal is to increase home ownership across the board. That's our goal at HAR as well. But we do have specific diversity groups in the Houston area. NALREP, the Hispanic group. We have some Asian groups. And Black groups as well, and their goal is to increase homeownership amongst specific diversity groups. Have you seen a difference or an increase in homeownership rates among different ethnic groups?
so that actually is not. I can pull this up quickly. Do-do-do.
And while you
So
go
there's
ahead.
a
Yeah.
big
Go ahead.
there's kind of an interesting the short answer is yes. So one interesting thing is that we're looking at the 2010-2022 period. The number of Black owner occupied households in Houston decreased in that period, as did actually the number of white owner occupied households as well. But the number of Black owner occupied households did increase in overall Harris County. So that increase is happening in the suburbs, as I mentioned. And I know that in Fort Bend County, for instance, the number of Asian owner-occupied households actually more than doubled in only that 12-year period. Similarly, in Montgomery County, the number of Black and Hispanic owner-occupied households more than doubled as well. Looking at the share, that's something to elaborate on. But like what share of households are homeowners, that was not included. We were looking at kind of the raw numbers to get a sense
Absolutely.
of just general overall growth.
Yeah.
But that has been analyzed, I do know, in prior Kinder Institute research. I believe the first State of Housing from 2020 has those data.
Excellent. Thank you. Just a follow-up question, if you don't mind repeating, if you did mention it. Felita was just asking, can you repeat the two neighborhoods that lost Black homeowners?
Yes, I can. There were two neighborhoods. There are more than two neighborhoods that lost, but there were two neighborhoods that lost more than 1,000 since 2010, and they're South Park and Trinity Houston Gardens.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. If there are any other questions, type those in now, and we'll get to as many of those as we can. Also, I'd love to hear your opinion on something else, and that is, we talked about affordability today. There was some comments saying, how can anyone, afford a home as we're discussing some of these things. How do you think that realtors can help promote change amidst these affordability challenges that Houston faces?
I think there's two things. One is that don't forget the places that are affordable. I know that people mention schools, crime as being perhaps not selling points for certain neighborhoods. But the fact is that is a place where people can buy homes. And the fact is that homes have appreciated in value in every single neighborhood except for two in Houston, one of which is Meyerland, which I think people can understand probably has something to do with the flooding concerns. Since we looked at that, where sold homes per the gentrification analysis increased in value. They increased in value in all but two. And it was Meyerland and then Gulfton, which has very little owner-occupied building stock relatively, and also has some flooding concerns. So the fact is, homes remain good investments, even if there might be certain factors that people might deem as undesirable for certain neighborhoods. So that's one thing, is like thinking about these places, and speaking with clients about what they're looking for. Secondly, I know that HAR, I believe, has some pretty good down payment resource assistance resources,
Hmm.
and that speaking for myself as somebody who's explored, I currently rent.
Hmm.
Um, Shout out Ginger. I had a HAR realtor help us find our current place, and she was great. I don't know if she's watching, um, but I do know somebody who's explored home ownership. Even as somebody who has, I work at Rice, I have a decent job. Um, I still qualify for a lot of things.
Hmm.
So I would guess that you know more about these
Hmm.
opportunities, but I do know that they're out there.
Absolutely. Yeah, a great reminder. And thank you so much for bringing it up. To our members that are tuned in, down payment resource, it's available to you in Matrix. It's available to consumers on our website. We can share that link. Actually, we did already share that link in the comments as well. And right now, about 90% of the listings in our MLS qualify for some sort of assistance. So that's really great to mention. And thank you for sharing your feedback on that. We did have a couple questions and comments that came in that I'd like to address. First of all, Peggy just made a great comment here. Kinder has long been the authority of all things research in the Houston surrounding areas. So you've got some fans in the crowd here.
I'm
Um,
blushing. Thank you.
a comment here on the east side, and it's a longer one, but I think it's a valuable one, so I want to share it. Elle just said the east side isn't desired, even though there are some great pockets of opportunity there. I've sold homes in Baytown, Highlands, and LaPorte this year, and it was for people who already lived in the area and employed by plants or the port. It is hard to get people unfamiliar with the area comfortable to explore, but it definitely isn't a diamond in the rough. I closed a great home under $220,000 with a pool on the east side. So just wanted to share that. Again, as you said, explore those pockets of opportunity for those clients that could be interested. There could be value there for them. So thank you for sharing that with us, Elle. A couple more questions and comments. Um, there was one question here, and I don't know if you guys studied this metric specifically, but if you do know, Jennifer is asking whatever areas have shown the longest, so the longest tenure, I guess we could say, of home ownership.
Oh, that's a really good question, and I don't know if I'm writing that down. We don't have the answer, and I won't
Okay.
waste your time pontificating.
Mm-hmm.
But that is a good question,
Yeah.
especially
Excellent.
places like markets that might be seem kind of closed, like they're
Mm-hmm.
desirable, but it's like hard to get into them.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what she's gesturing at, but that's a good question.
Yeah, very good. Well, and you
I'm
leave
writing
it
it
to
down.
us and our members. We will come up with some good questions for you for you guys to research. So very good. And there was just another comment that said 220 under 220K with a pool. Wow. So yes, as we're suggesting, don't discount these areas of affordability. Excellent. Well, I did want to ask you, Steve, how can, because our members, we did share the link to the report so that people can go check out that report in its entirety. Of course, we were kind of looking, at bird's eye view here today, but there's so much within that report. They know how to find the report. Is there any other places that they can follow you guys, or how they can get more information from Kinder?
Well, we are on most major social media platforms. I think LinkedIn, all of them. We're not on TikTok, but Facebook, Instagram, whatever, Twitter is X, the everything app. Um, if you go to kinder.rice.edu, we share research regularly, not just about housing, but about education, community health, economic mobility, that really reflect the diverse centers, all of which are focused on Houston, but look at it from different angles. And I think
Mhm.
have some relevant research that, as we mentioned schools, I'm sure the education research that we have is very relevant to the people in your audience. I know that there at the website, you can also subscribe to the Kinder Institute newsletter if you scroll to the bottom. But kinder.rice.edu is the one stop shop for all of the research we produce, housing and otherwise.
Very good. And of course, follow them on social media, just maybe not TikTok. Very
Yeah,
good.
we're
Well,
not there.
Not yet, maybe. All right.
Yeah.
So is there anything else that you've shared some great information, and thank you for sharing those detailed numbers and slides. We can go ahead and share the link to the slides in their comments. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our members today?
I think just keep up. I think it would be the importance of keeping up not just with our housing research, but I think particularly education, because that's obviously incredibly relevant to the work of Realtor. Um, so consult the link. And also, I have questions for you. If you see me at some Kinder event, please talk to me, because doing this, y'all are on the ground,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think that you have an appreciation of the challenges, but also the gifts and benefits of living in Houston. I say this as somebody who moved here, and my first experience getting to know the town was through a realtor who
Mm-hmm.
showed my family and I around, and I really appreciated that. And I see the skills that y'all bring, and I just want to thank you for that.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Just a couple comments coming in thanking you. This has been awesome stuff, Monique said. So we truly appreciate your time. We did share that link to the slides in the chat for those that were asking. So you can definitely check those out. And thank you again to you for sharing those slides with us and all of the information you shared with us today.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, that is it for this Member Focus Monday. We will be back next Monday at 9 a.m. So be sure to tune in. Have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye.